Alright, so April is going to help me do a little bit of filming in the museum today. So this is where a museum is. This is 4,000 square feet, so it's a pretty fair size, and we're getting a lot of real cool stuff in here. And we'll show some of it to you. Okay, so this is a replica ore chute that was built same as you see in the mines. The only difference is this one here, it's not seized up. So, and we haven't found very many of these handles. Usually they take these handles off. It's a key, I guess, that starts it. So basically, yeah, the miner just pulls it up like that, it lifts it up, and the ore comes out and into the cart. And away it goes in the mines. So most mines are operated this way. They, people think in mines that the miners shovel stuff, and they did sometimes with coal, but very stupid way of doing it. So usually they have a big deposit up top, they mine it, they put a tunnel underneath the whole thing, then they put chutes down, and then they have a railway, and then they use gravity to push everything in the cars. You can load a lot more but just by pushing it down or let gravity do the work. So they really didn't shovel if they didn't have to, but sometimes they had to. So this is the beginning of our railway, so I'll show you this this little railway that I built just to display some of the mine cars and stuff that we have here. There's a GNR track switch, and that's a Great Northern Railway, and it wasn't actually used in a mine, but it's just a really cool artifact, and it came from the railway here, and it was a big railway to Phoenix, so that would have been for a main for the main track or the main haul level outside of the mine. And here's the switching mechanism and stuff. So this switching allowed it to go to the right or the left track. This car here is a pretty big car. And this would have been pulled by either an electric train or an air powered train. So it just has a lock on it. Lock it and then it would dump, eh? So then you could dump it to the right or the left. And that's how they dumped. The cars are just kind of balanced in there. So I don't really know if you could just pull that by hand if it was full or not. It'd be kind of interesting. The only way to find out is actually to fill it right up. I don't know if you could or not, but I suppose they could have some kind of a hook on it to pull it over. I don't know how it would work, but this here is a flatbed car, and it's just, like you can see, it's just hooked up to haul timbers. There's a tremendous amount of timbering in a lot of these mines, and it's just a handy car to throw your ties on to build a railway or whatever. These are two Remington air-powered chainsaws. Again, they didn't use gasoline engines in mines, obviously, because you need to breathe the air that's in there. And in the old days, they didn't have very good ventilation in mines. Today, there's much better ventilation. They actually run diesel engines in mines that they never used to before. But they've got huge vents and better engineering, and a lot of air is going through the mines to exchange air in it. This is an air-powered locomotive, and it's an MCO air-powered locomotive. It all works perfectly. It doesn't have the air tank on it, so normally there'd be a huge tank about this high bolted on here that more or less obstructs all this. And there's a little seat for the engineer sits here, and it runs the control, and it runs on compressed air. Like mine's always got lots of compressed air in them, so they just hook a hose up to it, fill this big tank up, probably maybe every trip or something, and they use that. This is a very old cart that was used by mules around the turn of the century, before they had any railroads or roads or cars or anything like that. All the parts for all the stuff in mines is hauled in by teams. So they just got the pieces of steel they need to build these carts, and then they brought them into the mines. An interesting old cart, like I say, it's just about all made out of wood. I've hauled all these metal parts out of old corroded carts that are in various places, then got all brand new wood. So I built this like a brand new cart, but it's actually 120 years old. And one of the neat features of this, and there's no ball bearings in here. They didn't have ball bearings back then. This board here, it just pulls out like this. And if April can show you in there's kind of a little well in there. And that's where the oil went in to lubricate these axles. So they just filled out full of oil, and the oil came out through the axles, and that's what lubricated this car. There isn't oil in it right now. There's just grease in it because there'd be oil all over the floor. So that board is the only original wooden part from this cart. Everything else is new. But there's something that's a little newer. Is probably, I'm not sure. I have to do some research. I think they probably started maybe making this in the 20s or the 30s. And these were used when they were blasting tunnels. So, they're blasting tunnels into a face, and they use their drills to blast pattern, and they blow it out, and then the next crew would come in, they use this mucker, and they would shovel that out. And so it's got two controls on it. This one here runs it back and forth. This thing will just turn by itself. So the operator would sit here and you push this ahead and that would make it go forward. You pull it back and it goes back. This control makes the bucket go up, and it goes up really fast. You got to be careful, because if you get anything stuck in like your head, it'll take it off. So they're pretty dangerous actually. You know, these things got a lot of power. The head will go into there, and then you would back it up against this car, and then you raise the bucket and it would go, and it would actually fill it in that car. And it's really a fast, aggressive machine, and it really revolutionized mucking. You know, it's just way faster doing this. It's a pretty neat machine. Here's some of our drills. We've got quite a few drills and a mucker. This mucker here, they use on inclined levels. So if you're going up a mine and you find the ore is going up at a raise at an angle, you can't run a railway out down there because it's too fast. So this would just run up there, and it would just pull with the winch lines up and down to bring all the material down into a hole, down to a winze to lower levels. And they would use an air-powered winch. This is a too small one to use for a mucker. They have big ones with several drums, and that would move that like a hoe almost to bring the material down to the main level. These are some of the different guns here. This is a fairly new gun. It was probably less than 50 years old, because it has a water inside it, so it's got two lines here, one for air and one for water, and the water cools the bit, and it also way less dust. In the old days they had a lot of dust in these mines, and that killed a lot of miners. So, and then also this is a hydraulic cylinder here, so an air powered cylinder, I'm sorry. So the driller can control how that is. So basically with this drill you could put it at any angle, you could set it at any angle, including straight up, so you could drill straight up with this. You could stick it in there, and there's different jack legs, different lengths of jack legs for different purposes. This is a very old drill here. This drill doesn't have, didn't have any water in it at all. It just had a straight bit just like this. There was no water that went through it, and it's a very old drill. This drill was manufactured in 1911, it says on it. This is a really old, loud, dusty. It wasn't very efficient because it didn't have any water to lubricate the bit and to cool it. And this is just another shorter jack legs. These are different jack legs. They use different purposes. You can see this is how the air works on it. So you just hook it up to there. It'd be hooked to a drill, and then you could put it into the face and maneuver it, so you didn't have to lift it, because this is pretty light. But when you put a drill on there, that drill weighs another 150 pounds. You could barely move that around. So there's all different kinds of lengths of these. And some of them are for going into the face, and some into the back straight up. This is a forge and a forge blower, and the way it works is this blower. Usually a kid did this sometimes, but for the blacksmith, basically they would just turn this. It's got a big fan in it, and it blows a lot of air into the forge, and this is where they would have the fire and stuff and make their tools. Interesting thing about a blacksmith, the only tool that they didn't make is a hammer. All these other little tools, they just made them, and they travel around with their forge. These are pegboards and stuff. They use them to count loads in trams and in the mines when they dumped ore carts. I guess that's how they maybe invented crib. They had those little markers. There's a pelican, and this is pretty interesting. This is an old electric tram cable for the underground locomotives, electric cables. And this is the newer type that actually has two wires. The older ones only had one wire, and they used the rail for the ground. And here's some bricks. They came from Antioch. This one actually, Granby, was made by the Granby company. A lot of different types of bricks. There's Claiborne brick. They made their own bricks at Antioch's. And here's a lot of old tools and stuff. They use a lot of square-headed stuff. These are powder company boxes. The most common ones you see in mines around here are the Polar Forsyth gelatin boxes, and those are from, the years are right in the top right corner there, so that's from the 1940s. This one's quite rare. Hamilton Powder Company, I've only ever seen one. And the Giant Powder Company is quite rare also. And see, it says 1918 on this box. So here's another Giant Powder Company box, and here's some actual dynamite. There's no more powder left in there. There's just dirt in there now, but that's what the sticks look like. Ammonia 50%, giant butter company explosives. Okay, so this basically, you hook these two terminals up to an electric blasting cap. So here is an electric blasting cap, so they would have gone on there. And then, yeah, you just turn this handle like that, generates a charge, and that's how they set off blasting caps back in. So, and here's a little box there for the original CIL blasting caps. And so, the other thing we have here, this is a light bulb that is actually, it came from Phoenix. It is a hand-blown light bulb. It's about 120 years old. So it was inside the mine. And these were actually very valuable back then. In Antioch, they wrote stolen on there because the workers used to steal these lights and put them in their houses. So I'd really like to get one of those that says stolen on it. This is a set of gold scales. So there's all the different weights, and you put your gold on there and you put it on there, and that's how it was a balanced scale for gold. And these are some carbide lamps. But so we'll show you these lamps here. So we start off with this lamp here, and this is the old candle. It was called a Tommy stick. You just stick that into the side of a timber, you light that up, and that was the first lamp they ever had in the mines. Then they went to this one here, and this one is called a teapot. And basically just put coal oil or whatever in there, and you had a wick in there, you lit that, and that stuck out your helmet. And then after that, they invented the carbide lamp. We'll show you how the carbide lamp worked, and pretty interesting. We're going to do a show just using carbide, but basically you just screw the bottom off, the carbide goes in the bottom, and in this top part here, you just put water in there, and then you set this to the one, then the water drips into the carbide, and that creates acetylene. So acetylene comes out here, you light like that, and there you go, you have a carbide lamp. That's the way they worked. This is actually a flask that they used. It's a just right flask, and they filled that up full of carbide, and during the day when they're working, they unscrewed that, put more carbide in there, put more water in there, and that's how they stayed safe in the mines and stayed alight. And then after that, they went to the electric lamps and the great big heavy batteries that they had to charge, and then they have the more modern lights they have now. We've got a lot of embossed bottles. I don't keep bottles unless they're embossed because I just had so many bottles. And there's some old stuff, a spittoon, and some old tins and stuff, and an old radio. There's some different type of explosive stuff. There's a blasting charge generator and electric blasting caps. Some interesting lights and stuff. These are hand-blown light bulbs. Really old fixtures, electrical stuff. And just some different really old figurines and silver containers and whatnot. Here's the original shaft signals from the HB mine. This is actually from inside the mine, and that's the signals and stuff for the shaft. Bells. There's an actual shaft bell, an old one. Some of the signs and stuff out of some of these mines. This is an original map from 1907 of Phoenix, hand-drawn map. Some of the little bit newer beverage containers and stuff from the 50s and 60s from this area. These are different phones and stuff they use inside mines. Here's a explosion-proof phone, and this one here, this is how you made the power to run the phone. And there's another type there that they used inside the mines and stuff to do the same thing. Was a magneto that charged it up, and that shows how it worked. Extensive rock collection. There's some crystals and stuff, and all this stuff here, none of it's gold. It's all pyrite. Well, it looks like gold, but it's not. And here's some different types of rock here. My favorite, serpentinite. And this is galena. It's lead, silver, and zinc. It's quite heavy. And yeah, there's just different types of rock and stuff. Some pretty colorful stuff that we found in mines. And this is actually a fossil piece of wood. It's fluorite. This is actually a piece from a volcano. This is an assayer's, I don't know, grinding machine for an assayer, where they just had belt drive, and then they would just run it like that, and it's got a big screw in there. Lots more bottles, carbide containers, a big coffee can. This is a pump that was running off of compressed air. Here's some different ore buckets we have. This one here would be for a manway, for tools and stuff to run on. This is a smaller ore bucket. This was an ore bucket that we had in a video a few weeks back called Trippy. And there's a winch, and that would run the shaft for the ore bucket. This here is a ball mill. It's a pretty small one. It's only about 2 feet across. It would have been for pretty high value gold, I guess. And there's the ball for the ball mill, and it would go inside these into a hatch here, and they put it in there with the ore, and it went around, and it just pulverized all the material. Belt drive, and then it just pulverized all the material till it was a fine powder, and then it went through the cyanide process. And most people, they always think, you know, when you talk about gold mines, you see gold mines, you never do. It's really small, and it needs to be powderized to get it separated. This here is a turbine, steam turbine generator. They use this to make electricity from steam. Here's a couple of drills and stuff, smaller ones. 70s, it's a big drill that they would use to drill stuff. It's kind of really cool. It's got a big screw on it. It's air powered, so you could just push it right into the face, and you could set it up however you want it. To set it, swing around, and then when you're done, you can just pull it right back out of the face and out of the way and do your blast. These are some of the motors that we've got. This is a Rushton motor here, and the other one's a Lister Blackstone. They both turn over. They're not running, but they could run, I'm sure. This is an old ore cart. You can tell it's pretty old because it's all riveted together. And we haven't really done anything to restore this one. Just kind of showing these are the axles, and they didn't have bearings, so you just put oil in these holes here to lubricate these axles. There's an old winch with a gas-powered motor on it. They use probably in a shaft. And this is a real cool compressor that we got from an auction, actually. It was last used in 1915 to provide compressed air for a mine. So there's the old Magneto. Pretty interesting looking old compressor. We got her all painted up and sandblasted off, and that's how it started. It had a big crank on the front there to start it. So Sullivan, and I've seen one exactly like this, except a lot rustier, and it had a motor in them called a Buddha, which is a gasoline engine. Cool to see some of these old cages and stuff in these old girls. And actually all the instructions to run this are in there. This is a pretty cool engine. It's a Crosby engine. It's 17.5 horsepower. It weighs about 4,000 pounds, runs at 500 RPM. It's pretty complicated to get this thing running. We haven't got it running, but it does turn over quite freely. So it started on gas, and then it would run on diesel, but it was also adapted to run on a whole bunch of other fuels. It would, they had them all over the world. It would run on peanut oil and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's just a one-cylinder engine. Like I say, it runs at 500 RPM, 7-inch piston on it, and it's got an oil bath and stuff. And one of these days we'll get it running, but it's a little complicated. There's a big long checklist. You pretty much have to be an engineer to run the damn thing. And it's got a water jack and a bunch of other stuff. There's no radiators, so yeah, it's a pretty cool old engine. All right, so this is Alco Resources, John Nudokis, I guess. Grand Forks, he passed away, and all this stuff's been laying here for quite a while, so we talked to his widow, and she was more than happy for us to come up and just kind of clean this whole site up. And that's what we're doing, so we're just kind of burning little pieces of wood and stuff. We're going to haul all this junk out of here and So we got more stuff for a museum. Got a couple of explosive boxes on skids. Yeah, there's a permit stuff for it. And yeah, a few other things. There's water tanks and a fuel tank, I guess, or both water tanks. Now here's a really cool thing here, and this is for that drill that I got. And it's a little trailer, and you hook the drill up to it. We don't have much of a fire here. We just thought, well, we'd burn all these pieces of wood and crap around here, and there's not much smoke, so we won't get into any trouble. So we get a lot of snow here, and what happened was all the snow just collapsed his camp and his camper and everything, just made a huge mess out of everything. So yeah, we just burnt it all up, and there was hardly anything left, and we just came up and swept up what was left, and everyone was happy. Yeah, we're just going to throw a little bit of air in a couple of these tires, and we can't believe it. We actually got all this crap on these two trucks. The only thing that's left is there's one old water tank left come getting another day. But burned that camper up pretty good. There's nothing really left of it. Pretty much all burnt up. And we got all our treasures on here. Yeah, and the site looks pretty good. Just come back another day and just clean up what's left here.
Talk, cut to the chase. Time's running out and they're using life.